and welcome to Gutted. I'm Elise.
And I'm Tony, and we're here to spill our guts about horror films.
Thank you for watching and or listening to another episode of Gutted Horror Podcast. If you are new to the podcast, make sure to follow or subscribe so that you can stay up to date on new episodes. You can find us at Gutted Horror Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and Spotify, or on Twitter at Gutted Horror. You can also email us at guttedhorrorpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you for that. Today, we have a very exciting episode for you. It is our first Gut to Gut episode in which we review a film and its remake side by side. We will dissect the film, looking at differences, similarities, and give a brief synopsis of each, and try to decide if the remake can be as good as or better than the original.
And today we are continuing with our month of slasher films. And for all the young slasher fans out there, it is a special time of year. It is prom season. Yay!
Well,
it would have been prom season normally, but sadly, most high schoolers of the class of 2021 may not be able to enjoy their prom in the full-fledged old-fashioned fashion.
Yes.
So this episode is for those
this is for you young
adults,
young horror fans, and young promless
horror fans. So
we feel for you.
Instead of going to your prom, you can watch our podcast about proms, about Prom Night. Prom Night from 1980 and Prom Night from 2008.
Yes, very excited about this one today.
We were going to throw in Prom Night 2 from 1987.
Which we watched last night, and it's amazing.
It was
I'll just throw that out there.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Really wanted to talk about that, but we'll have to save that for another episode.
Well, we'll have to. We can't include that in Slasher Month because it really wasn't.
Yeah, just to quickly say something about that film, because I feel like something needs to be said about that film. Yeah. It's kind of, if you haven't seen it, it is sort of like if you took elements from your favorite horror movies of the 80s, and 70s, a little bit of Exorcist, a little bit of Nightmare on Elm Street, a little bit of Evil Dead 2, put them into one, a little bit of Carrie.
Carrie's in there. Yeah, a little bit of Carrie. It's like some horror fan just wanted to make an homage film to all their favorite horror films. Yeah. And you can really see elements. Anyway, it's great. But it's more in the supernatural possession subgenre rather than slasher. So tonight we'll only be reviewing Prom Nights from 1980 and 2008. And we acknowledge that it is a tall order to remake an original classic like Prom Night. So we're not trying to wish too much upon the remake of Prom Night in 2008. We're just wondering, could this film be blockbuster shelf worthy?
I think if you use those terms, blockbuster shelf worthy, that's the best shot it's got.
That's the best shot.
Because there have been so many horror movie remakes. Yeah. And I would say more often than not, they are seen as inferior to the originals.
Yeah. So is this film blockbuster shelf worthy? And keep in mind, Blockbuster is only so big. There's only one left in the world, and it's in Bend, Oregon, in case you ever want to check it out. It's pretty amazing. But they only have so much shelf space, So is it good enough to be on the shelf next to its 1980 counterpart?
Or is it good enough to be in the thumbnail next to its Netflix counterpart?
Okay, yeah, fine. If you want to get...
Or is it going to be like 5 pages back, like Netflix page 8?
Page 7, yeah. 7 or 8.
I said page 8, page 7.
I was more optimistic. Page 7.
So how are we going to do this? We have a gut-to-gut episode.
Yeah. So we're going to compare them gut to gut. First, we'll do the synopsis, a brief briefer than we've done in the past synopsis of the 1980 version. And then we'll do a brief synopsis of the 2008 version.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will give our little opinions about them to see.
This is going to be sort of a debate.
Kind of like a debate.
In a way.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. We're not exactly sure how this is going to go.
And the whole theme of high school, we're going to do our best
debate club.
mock trial. Our best mock trial impression.
Prom Night 1980 versus Prom Night 2008.
All right. And of course, before we begin, we should mention that there will probably be spoilers. In fact, there will be spoilers. So listen at your own risk.
And if you haven't seen Prom Night 1980 or Prom Night 2008, go ahead and pause here, watch those two movies, come right back.
Yeah.
Or just listen along.
Or just listen if you don't feel like watching. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, let's get started. Prom Night 1980. 11-year-old friends Wendy, Jude, Kelly, and Nick play a killer version of hide and seek after school in an old derelict building. The game is intense and only intensifies when little 10-year-old Robin joins in on the fun as her twin brother Alex and older sister Kim turn back to school. The older kid sees the opportunity to taunt and scare the younger girl and chase her, yelling, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Robin pleads for them to stop. The game turns deadly as the little shits take it too far. Robin accidentally falls from the second-story window, falling to her death. The four friends, startled and panicked, agree to a pact of silence. Detectives rule the young girl's death as a sexual assault and pin the murder on a local creeper who was later disfigured in a police chase. Fast forward 6 years to the present. Kim, played by Slash Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, and the Hammond family are still broken up over the loss of Robin. The four young friends have seemed to suppress or forget about the incident and are still friends with Kim, with the exception of Wendy, the main kid instigator who is now Kim's rival. Wendy has not felt much guilt nor remorse for Robin's death and has become the high school hottie with the mean girl attitude. Wendy has recently been dumped by Nick for Kim, just as Hamilton High is getting ready for the night of their lives, Prom Night. And to add to the high school drama, Kim and her beau Nick are set to be crowned king and queen. Jude, who is somewhere between clueless and adventurous, decides to take a short and stocky slick Seymour to prom after being wooed by his bold pickup lines from his pimped out stoner van. Kelly, still meek and weak-willed, toils over the decision to let her boyfriend have sex with her on prom night. Alex, the younger brother, is quiet yet quick-tempered and protective of his older sister Kim. Alex is involved in a scuffle with local butthead Lou after Lou's attempted assault on Kim in the cafeteria, sending both to the principal, who happens to be Kim and Alex's dad, played by Leslie Nielsen. Serious Leslie, not the Naked Gun Leslie. Butthead Lou is suspended. Alex is given a pass. Meanwhile, the four childhood friends are being stalked by a mysterious killer, calling each and letting them know that what they did last summer or 6 years ago in an unsettling Ghostface kind of phone call. And local detectives learn that local creeper escaped, and they use the opportunity to attend or protect prom goers at Hamilton High, anticipating that Creeper is going for revenge on the kids that got him locked up. Wendy sees opportunity to ruin prom for Kim and opts to take loose cannon Lou to prom. Add a quick Saturday Night Fever rehearsal and a light up disco dance floor, and we are set for the best prom ever. Prom night is in full effect. Disco fever and teenage hormones pervade the gym turned Studio 54 on this soon-to-be night of terror. We have detectives on high alert, a murderous stalker in a ski mask on the prowl, and a gang of teenagers breaking every rule in Randy Meek's rules to survive a horror film. The first victim is Kelly after she ultimately decides to refuse sex with her boyfriend, but went enough of the way to get her throat slit with a shard of broken mirror glass. Next, Jude and Slick are terrorized after they get busy in the back of Slick's van. Jude is stabbed in the throat with a glass shard, and Slick ends up driving off a cliff after a struggle with the masked killer. Now, back at school and armed with an axe, the killer goes after Wendy, where after fighting back and nearly escaping, finds Kelly's dead body in a supply closet. Her deathly scream reveals her position, and in this game of hide and seek, it ends with Wendy getting hacked to death. Now, moments before crowning prom king and queen, Lou waits for Nick backstage, ties him up and steals his crown, ready to reveal his big prank to the school. The masked killer mistakes Lou for Nick and lops his head off with an axe. Lou's head rolls out onto the stage. The killer is electrocuted when axe swings hits the power line. Oh yeah, the detectives found out earlier that the local creeper had been caught 60 miles up the road. They're just there for the spiked punch. The disco is now officially dead. Students flee. Cops try to take control of the situation, covering all exits. Inside the gym, killer comes to and continues to go for Nick as Kim grabs hold of the axe and cracks the ski masked man in the skull. The stunned killer locks eyes with Kim, and she sees through the mask in a moment of revelation. He stumbles outside with the cops ready to fire as Kim cries out, "Don't shoot!" and embraces the killer, removing his mask to reveal, spoiler alert, that it is in fact the brother Alex, and with his last words utters, "They killed her. They killed Robin." And
Great movie. Great flick.
yes.
Nice. Okay.
So let's hear about the remake.
Yeah, let's see how close this was. This remake got to that 1980 version.
Crash into the weekend. Calling the cavalry. I'll taste of victory.
Prom Night 2008.
At some point in the mid-aughts, high school freshman of Bridgeport High, Donna Keppel, played by Britney Snow, returns home from a carefree night out to a grisly scene. Dad and little brother have been murdered, and she barely has enough time to react before she hears her mom's screams and another voice quickly moving toward her. She scurries under the bed unnoticed just as Mom is thrown to the ground beside her. "Where is she?" screams the voice. "She belongs to me." Mom glances over, makes eye contact with her tearful daughter, and uses her final moments to silently say goodbye to her daughter and throw the killer off the scent by declaring, "She's at a sleepover." And with that, Mom is off to right in front of poor Donna. 3 years later, our traumatized freshman is now a senior. She's in therapy, but more or less mentally stable. She's living with supportive aunt and uncle and is part of a best friend trio and is in a committed relationship with Bobby. And she is pumped for her senior prom. She's got it all, except parents. While getting her hair done for the big day with her best buddies Claire and Lisa, the three casually muse about all the mysteries of their promising futures. Will Lisa be crowned prom queen? Will Claire go all the way with Michael? Should Donna go to Brown or attend the state college to be closer to her boo Bobby? Before she can get too lost in thought, she glances outside and spies an eerily familiar figure staring back at her. Could it be? No, he's in jail, but he looks so familiar. Cut to the local police station where Detective Wynn, played by Idris Elba, has just received word from Detective Nash that Richard Fenton, the killer from a case he worked 3 years ago, has just escaped from prison. Wynn gives his partner and the audience the lowdown on how Fenton, played by Jonathan Shake, was Donna's teacher who developed inappropriate feelings for his student and was eventually fired from his job. But the restraining order put him over the edge and drove him to murder Donna's entire family. Wynn informs aunt and uncle, should they swoop up Donna and leave the state? Nah. Let Donna have her day. It is prom, after all, a rite of passage and the most important night of a teenager's life. Killer Schmiller. Back at prom, the fun is in full swing and the best of Bridgeport High are ripping it up on the dance floor, watching the video yearbook on the Jumbotron and cradling their Pepsi like it's scotch on the rocks. True to all coming-of-age dramas, the night is full of laughter, relationship woes, catty remarks about that bitch Chrissy, and after high school anxiety. Will we ever see each other again? Likely not, because this is not a coming-of-age drama. It's a horror movie, and oh yeah, there's a killer on the loose. And our killer is racking up quite the body count. 2 hotel employees, Claire and Michael, and a cat and mouse chase that ends tragically for our would-be prom queen Lisa. And before Ronnie could propose, finally the cops shut that shit down. Prom is over. Everyone outside. And everyone surprisingly abides, except for the one person who should, Donna. While searching for her best buddy Lisa, she finally comes face to face with Fenton. Just when she was getting on with her life. But Donna's a pro at this now and knows that all you need to get away from an obsessive lunatic is a Jack and Jill bathroom in the underside of a bed until Idris Elba can come to the rescue. He saves the girl, but that sneaky Fenton is nowhere to be found. No matter, he'll turn up. In the meantime, Donna and her boyfriend Bobby are whisked away to the last place Fenton would ever think to look, Donna's house. Not the best idea, Idris, but at least Fenton gets to add a couple notches to his body count. Detective Nash, no-name cop, and BF Bobby. No! At least now Donna doesn't have to go to state. Spurred to action by this last death and a slowly approaching shadow from the hallway, Donna seeks refuge under the bed? No, to the closet where Fenton emerges from the coat hangers and seizes that long-awaited embrace. But Donna's not having it. She bites his hand and engages in some foot-to-face combat on the floor until Idris finally arrives and shoots Fenton in the chest. But this cop's not taking any chances on a sequel and fires 6 more times just to make sure Fenton has terrorized his last teenager and ruined his last prom. Aunt and uncle embrace the re-traumatized Donna and silently ponder daily therapy sessions for the rest of their niece's life. Okay, that was Prom Night 2008. Initial impressions.
Initial impressions. Should we start with the original?
1980. Yeah.
Let's start with the original. Prom Night 1980. I enjoyed it. I think that that was expected.
You know, though, I had seen it already many years ago. I think I probably saw it when I was maybe in elementary or middle school with my cousins again. And
Those cousins.
And probably not long after I saw Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think because Jamie Lee Curtis was in both of those, I had high hopes for Prom Night. And that disco scene, man, I was just not appreciating it as like a 10-year-old. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, I could see as a 10-year-old in the 90s when you watched it.
Yeah.
I can imagine that disco scene was maybe boring.
It was boring.
But as an adult, I loved the disco. I enjoyed the music.
I actually did enjoy it a lot more watching it this time.
I enjoyed the dancing. I enjoyed the light up dance floor.
I loved Jamie Lee's moves. I'm just like,
she's a great dancer.
She had some high kicks. I was very impressed with her.
Very
kicks.
fluid.
Yeah. And when I was like 10, I was just like, this sucks. And the disco lasts for a very long time. And you're just kind of like waiting. Where's that killer? Just chop them already. But I also appreciated all the different points of view of teenagers at prom. Like Kelly has a very different view of prom than Wendy does, and very different than Kim. And so it's like all the different scenarios that could happen to you, mostly if you're a female, at prom, you got to see them.
Yeah, I also enjoyed... I kind of said it in my synopsis, even though it didn't really make a ton of sense, but there's that sort of, I know what you did last summer, something bad happened in everyone's past, and they're all sort of, they've kept the secret. And it seems like they've kind of forgotten or maybe just suppressed it, or maybe they're just really good at keeping secrets, because Kim had no clue that her friends were all responsible for her sister's death.
And I mean, I could see
At one point,
Kelly definitely, it seems like the repressing kind of type.
yeah.
And although she repressed it, I feel like it still affected her. Jude, that girl, I mean, she's just like not a care in the world.
Jude, yeah. That's why I kind of saw her as maybe a little somewhere in between clueless and adventurous.
Not playing with a full deck of cards. Sweet, but
she's down to just get picked up by some dude in a van upside the road.
And she even acknowledges it. She's like, I don't know. They talk about people like you. Should I get in your van?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hop in. Let's see what's going on. And then it ends up taking him to prom.
And they end up being a great couple. A great
probably
the
healthiest couple.
In the
so
movie.
sad that they
short-lived couple, but healthy.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nick, he seemed like the only character who actually had felt some sort of remorse and tried to actually fess up.
He has that moment on the beach during recess when they're walking along the bluff. What kind of high school is this?
This is a cool high school. Hamilton High.
Hamilton High.
Where's this bluff in Canada, though?
I don't know, but I want to go. I want to go to high school near a bluff.
Movie magic.
Yeah.
The Canadian Bluffs in Edmonton.
Yeah. The Canadian Bluffs of Edmonton. Okay.
That's where it was filmed. I looked it up.
Oh, okay, great. Well, if
if
you're from Edmonton, please let us know if there are such bluffs.
And it does. I would say it does. There's a little bit of the backstory first, where we have the kids, and I mean, I did think the shots through the derelict building or that sort of like rundown school. They found a really cool, really cool film set. Everything looked really great. I mean, nothing seemed like it was staged or built. Yeah. That seemed like an actual location, which I think makes the a set or a location that much better.
What a great find. You don't have to build this that it came to you.
Yeah, it's almost like when we were looking in a previous episode at Child's Play, they found a derelict building that was set to be demolished, and so the the production was told that they can do whatever they want, and of course they blew it up.
Yeah,
but it seemed like one of those finds.
They didn't blow this one up.
This one didn't get blown up.
They definitely utilized it. Maybe
they broke a window.
They broke a few windows.
Although the window might have already been broken.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway.
They threw a kid out the window.
Great. Anyway.
So we get a little bit of that backstory, then we get the sort of setup for prom. You kind of see where updating each of the characters, where they're at now, what their personality's like, who they're taking to prom, the sort of anticipation of what's going down with prom, and everyone's excited, yet still mourning, or still at least Kim's family is still kind of grieving over the loss of their daughter.
Yeah, they still visit that little tombstone every so often.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated there seemed to be some Italian horror influences. I was thinking specifically of maybe some Tenebrae or Tenebrae, depending on how you want to pronounce it, influences. When
you got to say with some sort of Italian accent.
Tenebrae.
There you go.
Some Tenebrae influences, where the killer in Tenebrae would whisper his words of terror.
Right.
Like, spy.
And I was getting a Scream Ghostface vibe too with those phone calls.
Ghostface calls, and also kind of I Know What You Did Last Summer vibes, short of hearing last summer the killer says, I know what you did.
Yeah. And actually, that was a good impression.
Thank you.
Maybe
Elise is the killer. I'm the killer. And the podcast killer. Anyway, I really appreciated that whisper technique. And when, especially during that cat and mouse chase with Wendy and the killer, and and he's whispering, kill, kind of like the four children in the beginning are chanting, kill, and then poor Robin falls out the window. Really good parallel.
Yeah, kids are so creepy.
Kids are creepy.
This is why I think I made this comment when we were watching the movie. I was like, this is why we have helicopter parents these days. Yeah. It's because of moments like this. Kids are just doing whatever they want.
Creepy kids hanging out in an abandoned building.
End up forcing their friends
playing murder killer games.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think I played those games too. They're fun. It's not fun
I'm
unless someone
starting
almost
to get
dies.
scared about, do I know my own wife? Maybe she has a dark and mysterious past.
Of course I do. Who doesn't? Right, guys? Right, guys?
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
So that was Prom Night. It was thoroughly enjoyed,
Yeah.
especially as an adult. Didn't appreciate it as a kid. Maybe because there were kid killers and I was like, oh, this hits too close to home. Not that I'm a kid killer. Anyway,
You keep alluding to.
I know. Cut this out. This is going to get cut for sure.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool in a time capsule way to see prom in the 70s.
From the
Although
70s.
the movie came out in 1980.
It's probably
But
shot in 1979,
some cities they're a
in
few years
1970,
behind.
maybe.
They're not just New York is probably like disco is happening in
Yeah,
the
New
early
York was already
70s,
into
but
the
in
hairspray
Edmonton
hair.
disco is probably popular in 1980
Yeah.
after
So,
discos.
It was neat to see a slightly post 70s disco party.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I think that the prom scene and the disco soundtrack was a highlight of the film for me.
It was for sure. And while we're not going to deeply discuss Prom Night 2 that took place that came out in 1987, I believe. It was
Mhm.
neat again to see like almost a decade later prom in the 80s.
What does prom look
What does
like
prom
in the 80s?
which looked a lot cooler. I think if I had to choose, I would want to go to prom in
Yes.
the 80s.
King
So
and queen
fun.
were determined via computer, and you had this sort of computer hacker, real genius guy.
Like, ding, ding, all digitized. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
we
let's-
haven't seen, just like quick, we
let's
haven't seen
segue.
Prom Night 3 or 4,
four.
so we'll
Mhm.
see. Like later, I think we'll go watch
Yeah.
those and see.
Later
Maybe
watch
we'll find
those.
out what prom looked like
What
in the
happens
90s.
In the 90s.
But we do know what prom looks like in
In
the
the
aughts,
aughts. The
2008. So let's talk
Yes.
about 2008
Prom Night
remake.
2008. Let's hear Tony's impressions of this one first.
Okay, I think it's this is not going to be a surprise that I was thoroughly underwhelmed by this film. However, Elise has made it her mission to convince me that this film deserves to be on the Blockbuster
Yeah. On the
DVD
shelf.
shelf.
Not
If
it's
she
not
was an
gonna-
employee of Blockbuster, it would be in her staff picks.
It would not be in my staff picks, okay?
She's
it would
not shooting that
It would
high.
be on the shelf, buddy.
On the shelf. Okay, on the shelf. We don't want to shoot for the moon here.
No, I'm not being unrealistic here.
Okay.
And honestly, this movie had hardly any relation to the 1980 version besides the fact that it took place during prom
Yeah, and I think
and there's a killer.
well, it isn't the high school also the same name, Hamilton
It's
High?
not. It's Bridgeport.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I thought that was a connection.
I
but
thought that was a connection too, but it's not.
it also seemed like one of the teachers who was was chaperone of prom seemed like they focused on her character a little more than I thought they should, and I was thinking, oh, maybe she was in one of the original prom
Looked her
nights.
up. She's
Yeah,
not. No connection. Really no
So
connection.
really, the only connection
It's
to the
during
original is that
prom.
it happens on prom and it has the same title. So they could
Yeah.
have named this movie something.
Prom Death.
They could have, like
Or like Night of Our Lives.
Night of Prom.
Yeah.
If they named it Night of Prom,
Night of Prom.
then it would just not be a remake
Yeah.
at all. It would be something
Mhm.
that's influenced by
Or like Deadly Corsage.
Deadly Course.
want-
I like that.
Thank you. I feel like they really should have tried to have named it something else because it really just disappointed fans who thought it was going to be a remake and it wasn't. So I really tried to think of this film as its own thing and not in any way connected to the 1980 version starring Jamie Lee Curtis, who we all know and love as horror fans.
Yeah. Okay. That leads me to some thoughts that I think we'll get into in a bit. But I did want to, before we start this sort of debate sort of thing, just kind of go over, I want to give the film a little bit of credit. I do like to kind of put some initial judgments behind and try to see like good sides of things as well as bad. I think it's really easy to just bash a film without giving it a little something, even if it's like, I mean, we're horror fans. We're not looking for like Oscar worthy, although when it happens, it's great.
It's great.
But we're okay with those, those subpar.
Yeah, we're okay
if it
with
has
plot holes.
If it has a like 1.7 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, then we're like, who cares?
We're still gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there were some things that I would note that I enjoyed about it, I would say it really made me want to go to Las Vegas.
It made you want to go to Las Vegas?
Yeah. I got it. It's, nostalgic for me, of course, for that sort of like,
these were
late
pretty
aughts.
fancy high schoolers. I think Chrissy,
there's some nostalgia
the
for me.
snotty cheerleader who wants to be prom queen and loses to Lisa. She's like, I paid $100,000 or something for this prom. Like, oh my goodness, girl. Who is your dad?
So the reason why I say it reminds me of Vegas is because, that it's like they went way over the top in that sort of in the era of that time. I think about some of the popular TV shows that were on around that time, like the
Dawson's
OC.
Creek. The OC.
Dawson's Creek was maybe early aughts.
Okay.
So, but the OC where everything, like everybody's rich and everybody's like over the top.
And then we get those reality shows like Laguna Beach.
We're all celebrities.
The reality show with those high schoolers that just go to the beach.
Yeah,
during
you
class.
got that Lindsay Lohan style. And so it, reminded me of that time. And, at that time, I also remember taking a lot of trips to Vegas. I think we were at that age where we were like, let's go to a club.
Yeah, because you just saw swingers and they're like, oh, they did it. They drove to.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They drove to Vegas.
That's more like
night.
swanky Vegas, though. But it reminds me of that time. And so I have this sort of nostalgic feeling for that era where people kind of all wanted to live the Lindsay Lohan lifestyle. Paris Hilton, the OC, and everyone's a celebrity and they're hanging out the limo. And as they walk into prom, they have the red carpet and everyone's taking photos. So that I actually enjoyed.
Okay.
I would say that I also enjoyed the fact that I thought it was, there were a lot of kind of like funny moments.
Yeah.
There's that sort of Owen Wilson-esque character who kind of dies this meaningless death.
One of the hotel
it's kind of funny.
workers. He's supposed to go check on Maria, the hotel maid, who's gone missing. Wonder what happened to her. So this Owen Wilson lackey has to go find Maria, and he dies in like a screaming close up, and you're just like, was anybody else on set this day besides him? Because it's just like a close up of his face.
Maybe they filmed it somewhere else. They filmed it offset somewhere.
They're like, oh, we're gonna get Jonathan to come in today.
We need more body count.
Yeah.
Let's just get this guy
Come
and
on,
film him.
pseudo Owen Wilson.
Yeah. I would also say, pros for the remake. It's hard to watch anything and not be happy that Idris Elba's in the movie.
Yeah, you're like, wow, this really, the quality of this film just kind of really got elevated with Idris Elba.
Yeah, and I think this must have been maybe after he did The Wire, so he's still sort of in that sort of.
Yeah.
Well, he played a bad guy in that one, but he
was cool. And
cool,
he had
yeah.
this like claim to fame with like, wasn't he also in Luther? And that show went on for a long time.
Although I never got too into Luther. I know you've watched a few episodes of Luther. I mean, Idris Elba is just cool.
He has a cool presence.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, he's the detective. Oh, he's going to solve this quick.
That was an upgrade from the 1980s detective who's just kind of like
very
whatever
forgettable
guy.
And he was just like there to have some spiked punch at prom.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
There's a creepy pervert killer on the loose.
That is definitely one of the main negatives about the 1980 version, the original, is that the whole detective plot really doesn't go anywhere. And it's like they kind of mention that like, oh, this must have been sexual assault. I don't know if the kids like told the detectives that. I can't remember exactly.
No, so after Robin died, they're like, oh, this must have been a sexual. They jumped to that conclusion.
They just jumped to it. They're like, yeah, this was, and then they arrest someone.
Did you do a forensics? I guess maybe they couldn't in the 70s. Who knows?
They had this sort of almost like later you kind of see this news report or something of a car that had flipped off the road and was engulfed in flames, and like there we got our guy.
Well, because he was a local pervert, and so they just assumed that, well, dead kid, local pervert,
put two and two together,
he must have done it.
And then they put another piece together where they're like the disfigured pervert escapes.
He escaped, and he does.
So he must be going to prom. So let's go to prom.
And the funny thing is, at the very end, they're like, "But what happened to that local pervert?" Like, who knows? It's like case for another movie. That's funny.
Yeah, they kind of I think the whole reason for that whole detective setup thing was, for one, to kind of like throw a red herring, although it wasn't a very good one. And
oh wait, no, they do catch the pervert, huh?
They catch him 60 miles up the road or something like that. Because they tell the detective at one point, I think a detective comes up to him and is like, I just wanted to tell you in person, we got our guy 60 miles up the road. And then he's like, oh, great. All right, let's go get some more punch.
Wrapped up in a nice little bow.
You need all of those cops there at the end for that like final showdown. So I think it's just sort of a plot device to have the cops there at the school.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, I mean, the whole ending's kind of dark because the cops don't ever actually shoot Alex.
No.
But Alex dies. And yeah, he got electrocuted, but I think what did him in was the blunt force trauma by Jamie Lee Curtis.
And she didn't get him with the sharp side of the axe. She got him with the dull side.
She blunted him with an axe.
So he's kind of dazed and stumbling.
Yeah, so he
and
died
one of the things that I thought was actually like kind of a really great moment of this film, and something that you rarely see in movies, is that Jamie Lee could see her brother's eyes through the mask.
Yeah, he didn't have to reveal. She
Christian Bale situation here where it's like he obviously has that little thin lip mouth and no one knows he's Batman some reason. None of that. She saw right through. She saw her brother's eyes.
Those are my brother's
with
eyes.
the ski mask on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would know it was you if you were wearing a ski mask. Like, if you like, come at me.
What if I talked in the Batman voice? That's my best Batman.
I mean,
that's my
there
best
was
Batman
no
voice.
there was the kill voice.
That's
You're
true.
Like, Elise, I'm gonna get you a present for your birthday.
There was going back to the 1980s. I know we're talking about the remake, but I'm just like, thinking about some of the shots that I loved. There was that really great shot where Wendy, she's in the cat and mouse game, and she's hiding behind.
She's hiding
like a locker or something, something with a reflective surface.
Shiny.
And you see her eyes, and you see the reflection of her eyes, and they kind of linger on the shot.
Very Italian.
Yes, very
Tenebre.
Very Argento. Mm-hmm. Yes. Focus on the eyes. She's got that thick eyeliner. She's kind of got that Italian model look.
And what I liked, just a little comparison. There is a cat and mouse chase in both versions. So in the 1980 version, it's Wendy, this very unsavory character.
Mm-hmm.
But even though she's so unlikable, you actually are rooting for her in this cat and mouse chase. And so that's very interesting to like really hope that this kind of bad person makes it, because she's putting up a great fight. And then in the 2008 version, it's Lisa, the one who gets prom queen but dies before she can know it.
That's pretty sad.
I know. She's giving it her all too, and she just realizes that, oh my gosh, this guy in this baseball hat, that's the creepy teacher that's been obsessing over my friend and killed her whole family. I had to go warn my friend. So she leaves her boyfriend Ronnie just as he's about to propose on prom night.
Just kind of out of nowhere, he pulls out an engagement ring, and he's like,
the writers are like,
damn it,
we need to add one more layer to this to make it even more sad. He was about to propose, which guys, don't propose on prom night.
Although because he did that moral, virtuous, I don't know, innocent gesture, he survived the night.
Yeah, I mean, even though he was going to break a Randy rule, he had intentions for marital sex. So it's like intended marital sex, not pre-marital sex completely.
Kelly in the original, she refused sex, although they did fool around a little bit.
Yeah. She was just so fragile, like this
She's
tiny
the
little
follower.
glass figurine.
Yeah.
And she was like, should I? Shouldn't I? Should I? I don't know. And she ultimately decides not to, and she's offed anyway.
Yep.
Sad. Poor Kelly.
Okay, so let's talk about, or I want to hear some of your reasons why the remake deserves to be on that blockbuster shelf.
With a different title, perhaps, it deserves to be on that blockbuster shelf because I commend it for being PG-13. The rating, I felt, I'm always impressed when there is a horror movie that is PG-13 because you immediately, when you hear it, you're like, oh, that's not going to be good.
That's immediately what I thought when I found out that it was PG-13.
Pull all the punches. They're not going to go for it. It's a kid movie.
No gore.
No gore.
They had like sort of like slashed throats, but there was no blood really. Some of the kills were implied. I'm
always very impressed when a movie tries to go for it and they go for that PG-13 rating and they still try to make it a horror movie. And I think I read that with the exception of I think Cry Wolf, which came out in 2005. I think that might have been PG-13 with the exception of that movie. This was one of the first movies to be a PG-13 rated slasher. That's really hard to do, to make a slasher horror film PG-13. It's easier to make PG-13
ghost stories
because there isn't a whole ton of gore in those.
Right.
But to be so bold as to make a PG-13 slasher movie, it's really kind of setting yourself up for failure. So I feel like it's commendable that they went for it.
Yeah, and that just tells me that the studio was trying to gear this towards teenagers.
And it makes sense because it's almost presented as a coming of age drama because they're going over all these very typical high school things like, Claire and Michael are in a fight. He doesn't want her to move too far away from him because he's very possessive, and there are, unfortunately, those very possessive relationships in high school.
Yeah.
And then there are also the healthy relationships in high school. And that's almost worse.
Would that
because
be Ronnie and...
No. Well, yeah, I guess they were healthy. But Bobby and Donna, Bobby was almost too good to be true. He was so supportive. He's like, go to Brown, girl. I mean, like, how often are you going to get these chances to get accepted to Brown?
So is he the Dawson's Creek guy that you were mentioning before?
I don't know if... I honestly didn't really watch Dawson's Creek too much. I watched a few episodes, but anyway, Bobby's just like this perfect all-American boyfriend, really supportive of Donna and her trauma and her getting into Brown. And she's like, I'm going to go to state because I want to be close to you. And he's like, no, you got to go to Brown. And she's like, okay.
Okay, I have to go to Brown.
And then you have the catty cliques, like Chrissy and Lisa just have some beef with one another. And
this is very Laguna Beach, OC,
exactly. And
Mean Girls. So these are the influences of this.
Yeah, they're like, why do you care so much about Chrissy getting, about you getting prom queen? And Lisa's like, because it's the purpose of it. Chrissy doesn't deserve it because she's not nice and all this stuff. So typical high school drama with the undercurrent of there's a killer on the loose. And for a PG-13 movie, he has quite the body count. I think he ends up killing 13 people in the movie.
That is quite the body count.
Yeah, maybe he's included in that 13. Who knows? But he goes for it.
With some of the hotel staff being totally unnecessary, in my opinion.
But that just is like a testament to his, his lunacy. He's just like this madman with a black hat trying to get his love, yes. Donna. And I'm like, why Donna? Well, she had great
grades. Which they
grades.
Never explained.
No, he was her teacher. And he's like, I love Donna.
Yeah, they just right off the bat, like first couple minutes of the movie, actually first seconds of the movie, he's just like, "Where's Donna?"
Yeah.
And I was thinking first, I was like, is he like a deranged boyfriend or something? And then it's later like, oh, he's
the teacher, this Marilyn Manson looking teacher.
Obsessed.
I'm like, okay, who hired this guy with
Charles
this long
Manson looking teacher,
I'm
not
sorry.
Marilyn.
This
That would actually have been
Charles- that
great
would
if
have
he
been funny.
had the one like blue eye and he had the white makeup. That would have been
and the
amazing.
breasts, that would have been
But
great.
no, he looks like some sort of third-rate Charles Manson.
He's a third-rate Charles Manson, and I'm just like this shaggy long hair, and
But he goes incognito. He shaves the long hair and the
after he
beard.
breaks out of prison, he shaves his head.
Puts on the
puts on the
discreet
black hat.
baseball cap.
And
He's
no
got the
one-
5 o'clock shadow and the chiseled jaw and
No
the
one
deep
is the
sunken in
wiser
eyes.
except for Lisa when she bumps into him. It really did seem like a coming of age drama
Mhm.
with a veil of horror attached to it.
Mhm.
Which in that case, maybe it is like a nice initiation of horror for younger people.
Mhm.
Maybe people, because I started watching when I was like, in elementary school, but not everyone does. Some people start when they're
So
in
maybe
high
a
school.
middle schooler
Middle school, high school.
dreaming about prom.
Yeah. And they're like, you know what? I'm ready to watch some more horror movies. And in that case, Prom Night 2008 is a great pick. It really seemed like someone took their own high school experience at prom and then put a layer of horror on top.
Yeah.
So what if your high school prom experience had a layer of horror on top? I really just want to hear Tony's story about his prom.
Oh yeah, my prom experience was
Sounds terrible.
absolutely horrible. I did go to 2 different school proms because I went to one school for 2 years and then I went to another school for 2
Like
years.
twice the fun.
Yeah.
Twice the horror movie.
The school that I was currently attending, where I was, actually enrolled, that prom was fine. It was fun. I had a good time. The prom to the school that I had moved away from was a nightmare. It was in another city. So, I was spending a night at my best friend's house and we were like getting ready at the same time. We got our suits and we got haircuts at the same time. And before prom, when we were getting a haircut, and I don't know if it was like whatever we ate for lunch or what, I got immensely sick and I was like puking in the parking lot. And, I thought maybe it was just like, I don't know. So I ate something and got sick. So I was like, whatever. Didn't really think much of it. Went to prom. And at my high school's prom, we started at the school where everyone was taking photos, and then they were going to bus everybody to another location where the actual like dance and party was. And I was just like still feeling really sick, and met my prom date there. And which is kind of, it's kind of odd. It didn't like no limo, nothing fancy for sure. Met her there and we took our pictures. I looked so ill in the pictures.
Sallow.
And I was just fighting and struggling to get through even just that little bit, like
Trying not to
hoping that
vomit in the picture.
hoping not to, yeah. And just
Or
like,
worse.
or worse. And just thinking like, all right, maybe it'll pass. It didn't. I ended up in the bathroom, just stuff coming out of every which
orifice.
way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had to have my date's mom, who was volunteering as one of the chaperones, take me back to my friend's house where I continued to be sick for the rest of the night. And she was pretty upset about it.
You ruined her daughter's best night of her life.
I ruined her daughter's night,
Magical
but
moment.
at least no one was murdered at this prom. So.
No, but now I'm thinking, okay, if you wanted to write a horror movie of your prom and put a little horror veil on top, I'm thinking like Contagion, like
I'm thinking it's
outbreak, flesh-eating virus outbreak.
No.
Starting with you as patient zero.
No, it's going to be more like Kuso, but at prom.
Okay, I don't think that many people have seen Kuso.
But for those who have, that's what it's going to be like.
No, I'm voting for outbreak, like insane rabid outbreak, flesh-eating virus at prom. And those who did not come in contact with you are going to have to like seal themselves in like the bathroom or the DJ booth. Yeah, and it's going to be like a breakfast club, but with like zombies or a flesh-eating virus.
Well, what was your prom like?
I mean, it was fine. I took the bus. Took the bus to prom. All my friends were in a limo, and I was like, I don't want to pay for that. It's expensive. Taking the bus by myself.
So as teenagers watching these movies about prom, I guess it's kind of nice to fantasize like, oh, this prom, it's like in a Vegas style club and everybody's having a great time. They have these infinite confetti bombs going off. Yeah. Or you got the disco, like the
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking this movie was written by someone who had a crappy prom, like Tony, stuck in the bathroom, or like me.
Which movie?
This 2008 version.
Okay.
Yeah. This was written by somebody who had a crappy prom, and they're like trying to like vicariously live their failed prom life through this movie, but they're a little bit bitter. They don't want everyone to have fun.
So they just kill everyone off.
They kill them all. Yeah.
Yeah. I see your point.
I'm thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? I didn't have that like, magical prom moment. I wasn't like, oh, am I going to like, have all this fun stuff and blah, blah, blah. No, I took a bus. It was still fun, but
mine was not fun at all.
The DVD player on my bus was broken. We were supposed to watch it. We were supposed to watch a
prom
movie.
night on the way to the prom.
I wish, but the DVD player was broken. And so I'm stuck talking to my peers on the bus without watching. I don't know, was it?
It wasn't a big thing to bus all the students out to the prom location. I think maybe that was just to curb like drinking and driving.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Yeah,
because we saw Lou in
all the
prom
people
night.
Going
he was
stag,
just chugging a bottle of whiskey with
highly
Wendy.
Irresponsible.
Super irresponsible.
Yeah.
They had a limo in 2008.
Although
paparazzi style.
If you took the bus to prom, you could have had like a Jeepers Creepers Part 2 situation. It wasn't like in Part 2 where they're on a bus.
I don't remember that movie one bit.
Jeepers Creeper guy gets them all.
Don't remember.
Yeah. So that's going to happen. That would happen in my movie.
The Prom Night remake, the problem that I had with it wasn't anything about so much the characters or this experience of prom for these young people, or the fact that it was a PG-13 movie geared towards young people. The thing that I was not a fan of was that it seemed to be more about the crime drama. It seemed like an episode of CSI Miami to me. If they called it CSI Prom Night Edition, the movie, I'd be like, oh, this is cool. It's got Idris Elba. He's like trying to catch the killer, and the killer is this sort of like really kind of he's like a creepy gray man kind of. He's like just incognito. He's got the sunken in eyes, and he didn't really do it for me as a stalker killer because it was so like overtly in, like he is almost like a cartoon version of a stalker in a baseball cap.
But I remember him, that actor, from playing like the jerk in That Thing You Do, and he played a really good jerk. So to me, it almost seemed like, yeah, what if that jerk from That Thing You Do became a teacher and went overboard with his obsession for a student? He played a good jerk in That Thing You Do. I think he played like a decent killer in Prom Night 2008.
I mean, he was definitely stalkery.
Yeah. He had that moment where he was crying because he saw Donna kissing Bobby and a tear fell down his cheek.
It just seemed like, yeah.
No, I didn't do it either.
No, it seemed like, no, it didn't.
I think he was all for that tear. He loves Donna so much.
It just seemed like, for one, the people who remade the movie didn't quite understand what was working for the new movie, or or like maybe even didn't see it.
That's what I'm thinking. They probably didn't know that there was another
They're
Prom
like,
Night.
Oh shit! There's another movie called Prom Night. Well, whatever.
They got
it's
into
the remake.
post-production. They already made previews, and they're like, we can't change it now. We do. Just go for it. Maybe people forgot that there was a Prom Night.
And then they're like, I guess this has to be a horror movie. It was going to be a crime drama.
It was going to be a Lifetime movie,
Yeah.
I really got a Lifetime movie sense because I have seen a lot of Lifetime movies, and I'm not ashamed to say it. And a lot of them involve obsession.
Okay, so I should ask, what were your opinions about Britney Snow, our main character?
I think that poor Britney Snow gets stereotyped or pigeonholed into these roles where she's just this like innocent, sweet girl next door, just really has her life together, even though all these bad things are happening. Like her parents and little brother are murdered. And she's still like, so like even keeled and perfect. I want her to lose it in a movie. And maybe I haven't seen
This
all her
could have been the
movies.
perfect
This would have
opportunity
been the
for her to
perfect
lose it.
chance for her
But
to lose it.
she has this intense trauma. She sees she's a foot away from her mom being stabbed to death. And she goes to one therapy session and is magically fine.
Know. She probably went down.
She didn't seem broken. She didn't seem to have anything lingering in the past.
I was really bothered by this therapist who was like, anyway, forget about your recurring nightmares of your trauma. Let's talk about prom. What's your dress look like? I'm like, whoa, lady, read the room. This girl is like, she's really suppressing, trying to hide her deep-rooted trauma. And therapist wants to talk about her dress and where she's going to go to college. Who cares, lady? Anyway.
There is a lot of opportunity to do some nice stuff with the remake, but ultimately...
I wanted Britney's character to be more broken.
Yes, I did too.
I wanted her to go ballistic on Fenton.
I agree.
I would have loved it if she had she just like launches on him like a ghoulie and does the whole thumb and the eyes gouging out scene. That's what she needed to do.
100% agreed.
She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. She had been having recurring nightmares of that fateful night for 3 years. You can't tell me she didn't think about a million ways to kill Fenton and get her revenge. I mean, she does have that really cool like kickboxing, like foot to the face moment where she's like really smacking him in the face. But that's it. I wanted her to just go animalistic, crazy on him.
And she didn't.
She didn't get to. And I'm really like, you know what? The director really missed that opportunity. He still could have kept it PG-13. Mm-hmm. There could have been implied eyes being gouged out. Mm-hmm. But I wanted her to have her moment and not give it to, I mean, Idris is cool, but I didn't want him to have that moment where he gets to fire 7 shots into Fenton's chest and save the day. I wanted Britney to do something besides a tame little bite, couple foot.
That's true. I mean, I was kind of expecting Idris's character to get killed and
you
kind
were?
Of, well, you know, like he's about to save the day and then
this
the
is
killer.
A Lifetime movie.
I'm saying what I was hoping for. He's about to save the day and maybe he shoots the killer, but then the killer comes back and kills Idris. And then it's like the killer, Fenton. I can't even remember the name of the killer. Yeah. Fenton versus Donna. And then Donna has that big moment. She's like, where
there's no one here to save me but me.
Yeah, that would have been better.
I'm gonna bite his cheek off and scoop out his eyes with a melon baller.
That would have been better. They didn't do it.
No. I mean, they were restricted within the PG-13 rating, which I get. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like there were still some missed opportunities with that film. But even with all that being said, I still feel like it deserves a spot on my Blockbuster shelf for those teenagers who want to rent a horror movie, but their parents put that restriction on there because they're only 16. And they're like, well, I really want to see a horror movie, but all I can rent is Prom Night 2008. I guess I'll do it. So that's why I'm keeping it stocked on my shelf. How about you?
I still am holding firm. I'm not putting
You're not letting it on your shelf?
No, I think if there was a Lifetime section at the Blockbuster.
You don't get a Lifetime section at Blockbuster.
Would make it there.
You're thinking of Hollywood Video. You got to go across the street.
I just think of like, you know, the countless horror movie remakes that have been made that have just soiled the names of their original. And I will admit that I am biased, as I feel many horror fans are biased towards the originals. Yeah. I feel like we like to keep these movies, we like to hold them close. Yeah. They are sacred. They're like our little babies. We want to keep them close. We don't want them to be remade. You can't remake Jaws.
You call it Orca.
And call it.
Put a killer whale in there instead.
See, if you remade
Actually, I love
Jaws
Orca.
and called it Deep Blue Sea, then now it's a good movie.
You're right. If they had called Deep Blue Sea Jaws, I think we would have been
You would have hated
maybe
it.
pissed. But I mean, Samuel L. Jackson is in it, and he has a great character and scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
So for me, it's like almost like a slap in the face. They're trying to slap the name of Prom Night on this movie that is not worthy of the name.
It did miss the mark, but I would still give it a spot and maybe put it in like a little tiny PG-13 tiny aisle, like a half aisle for PG-13 horror movies. That way parents can be like, go over there.
It's like if you go to the library and there's the young adult section.
Young adult, yes. Like I really loved reading Fear Street by R.L. Stine. I loved those books, but it was too much for me to get deep into Stephen King when I was 10. So I read R.L. Stine Fear Street. I feel like this is like R.L. Stine Fear Street compared to Prom Night 1980.
I think about the whole argument about, well, this is a movie that the parents might allow their kids to watch. And I don't really go for that argument as well because
kids will find a way.
Kids will find a way. Yeah. We just went through a few movies that we watched when we were in elementary school.
But what if they don't have cousins to let them watch these amazing movies? For all those kids that don't have cousins, they need that
kid on the block. There's always, if there's not a cousin, there's a kid who lives down the street.
Okay.
Who maybe the parents are working all the time. And so you go over to that kid's house and that's where you watch the rated R movies.
All right. So you're staunchly not letting Prom Night 2008 on your Blockbuster shelf.
I would say if I had to pit it against, and I know this is maybe not fair, but if I had to look at all of the remakes I've ever seen of any horror movie, and there have been way too many where I'm just like, I don't even want to see it because I know it's going to be bad. I would say that this ranks very low on my scale of horror movie remake.
Yeah, when comparing it to other remakes, it is pretty low on the totem pole. But I'm not comparing it to other remakes. I'm putting it in my own sub aisle of Blockbuster.
Okay, if you put it in a sub aisle. I
still believe that there are kids who need to watch PG-13 horror movies before they're allowed to watch the rated
I think
R.
they're a lot better with PG-13, although it's hard for me to think off the top of my head.
This is one of the few slashers, though.
I would rather my kid, if I was like, I want you to be a horror fan when you grow up.
Like, here's Texas Chainsaw.
Are you going to watch the 2008 version of Prom Night? Or are you going to watch, I don't know, Goosebumps or Ernest Scared Stupid? Maybe that's more for kids, maybe not teenagers.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Different ages. There are different movies for different, milestones. Like Ernest Scared Stupid, that's when I was like 5.
What about a movie like, I don't even know if this was PG-13, but a movie like Truth or Dare, which I didn't think was great, but
a great movie for a high schooler to watch if they're getting into horror. There's like the upper echelon of horror movies that you should really watch when you're in college and you're trying to like figure like, oh, okay, what am I as a horror fan or as a person?
I'm going to have these young horror fans just skip all the trash and immediately go into Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe Happy Death Day.
You can't appreciate the great ones without seeing some really bad ones. And I could see that argument. Some really bad ones as a child, and I loved them. And I feel like you need some bad ones in order to appreciate the really great ones. You need the Prom Night 2008s in order to appreciate the Prom Night 1980s.
Okay, I would agree with you. You need the bad ones to appreciate the good ones, and sometimes the good ones are not seen as good by the general public. They're seen as bad.
Or maybe they're not seen as good until like decades later.
But you don't need the lazy ones, and I saw this as a lazy film.
No.
If it was bad, I'd be okay with it, but it's lazy to me.
Oh, no. Okay, doing a slasher with a PG-13 rating, that sounds incredibly hard to me.
Okay, I'll tell you why it's lazy. They could have given more backstory. They could have given more motive. They could have given more depth to the characters.
Okay, fine.
They could have given more of, I don't know, something like an interesting score. I mean, actually, they did have some good songs. So I'm going to say that. They could have dialed down the whole, like, this is a detective story a little bit. And maybe they could have lingered on some of these little side characters that seemed really interesting, like this sort of like spoiled rich girl who spent $100,000 over budget on prom. Like that sounded cool, but they didn't.
I know, you're right.
They didn't.
And what about poor Ronnie? If you think about the friend
Ronnie's
group
love story,
that's left,
he pulls the engagement ring out of nowhere and then just tosses it. It's almost like an afterthought of a plot point. Like they could have lingered on that a little longer.
Claire's. It cost $12.99.
Yeah, maybe they could have had more like leading up to Ronnie's big moment where he knows he's going to like propose and everything's going to be great, have a big moment. But it was a throwaway moment.
It was. And I thought with all the technology they were like throwing in, they're like, oh, we have this video yearbook. What if they were going to like do some sort of live feed to YouTube of the crowning of the prom queen, and maybe Lisa accidentally had her microphone still on, and you hear her getting murdered.
That would have been amazing.
And it's being live streamed.
If that happened, I would put it on my shelf at the Blockbuster.
Okay.
If the killer looked like Marilyn Manson and not like third-rate Charles Manson, I would put it on my shelf at the Blockbuster.
Fine. If Britney Snow had a really awesome I'm getting revenge for myself and my trauma scene.
Yeah, totally broken or had
broken and wild. Yeah.
Fighting back. Maybe she mauls the killer, bites his nose off Cape Fear style.
Yes, that's what I was picturing. Like,
shelf.
Bite his cheek off. I'll get you. Yeah, but no.
It had none of that.
She didn't unravel. She stayed perfect. And she stayed totally contained within her put together persona. Yeah, she needed like a wild out moment. But still, I would still give it a tiny, tiny little corner of Blockbuster for those pre-teen.
I have a feeling that you just don't want to lose the debate.
Fine. I really don't. I don't want us to have to make different Blockbusters. Because now that's what's going to happen. That's where this debate is ending.
This is what we're going to do. We're going to have all the real horror fans are going to come over to Hollywood Video, my store. Okay.
See, I was thinking the opposite. We'll put all the preteen movies in Hollywood Video. And then
actually, you're probably you're right, because sadly Hollywood Video didn't survive.
All right, so this is a good compromise. We will put Prom Night 2008 in the Hollywood Video.
Okay.
And we'll keep 1980 by itself. No remake, but definitely that 1987 sequel in Blockbuster. All right, I'm okay with this.
All right, I will. And yes, cordially. Yes, I will. Actually, yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, thank you for. Are we wrapping up?
Yeah, let's wrap up.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our prom edition version of our first Gut to Gut episode of Gutted. And in the comments below, please let us know what happened at your prom. What would your prom horror movie be like?
Did you like the 2008 remake of Prom Night? Do you agree with Elise that it is a good entry level horror movie for teenagers? Or do you agree with me in that people should skip these types of movies and go straight for Nightmare on Elm Street or Child's Play?
Yeah. Or you need some of the bad ones first to work up to those.
What do you think about the disco scene in the 1980s classic Prom Night?
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and happy prom night.
This has been an episode of Gutted.